Welcome to this episode of TAC Tick Talk. We're joined by all-star author Dr. Frank Liberti, personal injury expert, specialist, innovator. What more can I say? I'm Joe Busch, the editor of the American Chiropractor magazine, joined by Jaclyn Touzard, publisher. Welcome to the show, Dr. Liberti.
Oh yeah, man! It's such a pleasure to be here. I mean, we've been together for decades, and I
Literally.
just thank you. I want to just go online and say thank you, family. Thank you so much for your contributions.
And thank you. I mean, honestly, you are an all-star author that writes frequently. You're helping lead the profession in this niche of personal injury, but really that's the trend-setting area, even that like Medicare will take on roles that they lead the ways with. So, Dr. Liberti, can you talk a little bit about how that niche has changed over the years and where you see it going?
I need to do that because I keep seeing the same problem. I believe chiropractors are probably the most prepared to treat a personal injury patient out of all the disciplines. I mean, we are phenomenal. So the treatment is there. Even our assessments and our evaluation, the history, the way we arrive at diagnoses, what we do to diagnose injuries, and the tests that we perform, and then the records and everything. And while that's all highest standard, it still doesn't solve the problem that we have today in personal injury, and that is that insurance companies have so many cost containment tactics, not just adjusters, not just software, but now they've got AI metrics, and you can't compete against that without the same metrics. So we are in an era where AI is coming into play, and I can say that the problem that we've got right now is that cases are undervalued, lawyers don't understand it, they ask us to cut their fees, and they don't refer the way they could and the way they should. So we're treating patients, we're documenting correctly, but the records just don't explain the impact that these injuries have on people's lives. And we weren't taught how to do that in school. So I want to introduce this, but I don't want to labor it. It's something called injury claim auditing or medical auditing. And there are schools for medical auditing, just like there are chiropractic schools. And these medical auditors take over after the doctor's done, and they'll look at these files, and then they'll translate these injuries into real world effects and dollar amounts. And lawyers are paying $10,000 to $30,000 for these audits. And then I just discovered that we could do the same audits even better than auditors. And now with AI, we've got a little help. And now we can rise up to become not just a chiropractor treating provider, but we can become the problem solver. We can eliminate the insurance company's tactics, or at least overcome a lot of those tactics, and give the full weight and the full value to these claims, so that lawyers come to respect us in a different light. They will not have to cut our fees because the insurance companies are paying more. And then, of course, they're going to refer a lot more if we solve their problems. So um, we can treat and document, but it's not enough today. Not if you want to compete against what the insurance companies are doing to contain these costs, using metrics, using software, using adjusters. And so um,
Dr.
claims are
Frank,
coming
you
out of
wrote
the
on
ground.
this. You wrote on this in the March issue here, and we had it as a cover story. So March 2026 issue of TAC. Be sure to go to the website, theamericanchiropractor.com, to read it if you didn't see it. But now, how did you develop this AI, which will go in and do this claim adjusting for the chiropractor? And I mean, what does that look like? Because I don't even, really know how to do a website, let alone an AI.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, that took literally, I've been inventing and developing this system since 2010. And then when AI hit the scenes about 3 years ago, everything changed. Fortunately, I had the resources to bring in some top notch developers from all around the country. There's 5 of them that have been working for the last 3 years. And we finally have a model that is structured and has passed its due diligence, because insurance companies evaluate loss. They don't evaluate medical records. They don't evaluate treatment. They don't evaluate the diagnoses. They evaluate the loss. And you have to represent those losses. And that's what our medical records, our EMRs, or SOAP notes aren't designed to do. Let me give you this story real quick because this is something that everybody sees. And if you want, I can get you these letters from State Farm. State Farm offered $10,000 on a case that was obviously worth a lot more. And the doctor treated the patient correctly, and the care was documented properly, but the record only basically showed the treatment. And so the attorney didn't know what to do with this case. It sat on his desk for over a year. Then he referred it to one of the doctors who's doing these auditings and using these AI driven metrics. Within 8 days, Allstate released the full policy limits. Now, this just happened last month, but we've got literally hundreds of cases of this and examples and testimonials. But this one really strikes me because it's just happened in 2026. 8 days later, they went from a $10,000 offer, which sat for a year, to offering full policy coverage limits. What's really interesting is the injury didn't change, the treatment didn't change. What changed was how that injury was explained. So it's almost impossible to do this without some sort of AI assistance. Years ago, we liked to do impairment ratings, and impairment ratings are the basis, and that's where you have to start. But only 5% of doctors of all disciplines will do an impairment rating. It's kind of difficult. There are some softwares and there's some help you can get, but still, only 5% of doctors are doing impairment rating. So I figured the first thing we would have to do is build an impairment rating calculator into our software. So we built this software so nobody changes their EMR. And it doesn't even interfere with workflow. It's so quick and so fast. So what we have to do is we have to start with something called trauma inventories. I don't know if you've heard of this. Have you heard of PROMs or EPROs? PROMs, PROMS. PROMs are patient reported, patient patient reported method outcomes, and EPROs are electronic patient reporting outcomes. These things became popular after COVID, where you use electronic inventories, electronic questionnaires, electronic surveys. So now the chiropractors are using ePros, electronic patient reporting outcomes, and they're using them to administer trauma inventories. There are 12 trauma inventories designed for an injured auto patient. And used to have to go to a neuropsychiatrist or a neurologist. Now the chiropractor can do it and can bill for it. So it's a revenue stream, but these trauma inventories will uncover overlooked, non economic medical damages we're not going to find when we do duties under duress, loss of enjoyment, or Medicare exams, or EMRs, or SOAP notes, or even ChatGPT. So we start with trauma inventories.
Right.
Then the trauma inventories will translate. First of all, you're going to add diagnoses you didn't see because we're doing trauma inventories in areas of sleep, anxiety, fear, avoidance, the mild traumatic brain injury, of course, the physical injuries, but also emotional, behavioral, cognitive. These are the real effects that injuries have on people's lives that we're not documenting that make all the difference, not only in how the case is evaluated, how much money the insurers are willing to offer, but it will never go to trial because they can't fight these metrics. And attorneys see what we're doing and they want to refer to the doctor who can help them. So, trauma inventories, then impairment rating, then loss of function. So, recently they changed the calculations for how to determine loss of services. So, in 8 federal categories, you can look at a person's loss of services that the federal government decides. It's called federal expectancy data. They said, here's the 8 categories. We haven't been looking at these categories. So when you look at these categories, it's how many days have they been in pain? What have they lost? Can they still walk the dog, take out the garbage, lift a heavy pot of water to the stove, fold the laundry, move things into the closet, drive kids to school? The list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
How much time was lost? So there's something that we have called the American Time Use Survey. So now you've got to say, okay, let's do these trauma inventories. Let's look at these 8 federal categories. Let's find out how many days since the accident you've been in pain or had losses in all these areas. How much time did you lose? Now you go to the Bureau of Labor and Wages, to the Occupational Employment Statistics, and you say, okay, This is you look at the gender, you look at the age, you look at the occupation, you look at the zip code, and even considers if you're caring for children or pets or adults. And then the Bureau of Labor and Wages says this is how much you deserve for your loss of the ability to walk the dog, take care of your pool, lawn, garden, cook. It's incredible that this is available to us, but we haven't used it. So we built it into a program that does this automatically. All the patient has to do is fill out these trauma inventories. And then this platform called Examiner 360 does all this heavy duty work and prints these tables. And we're going to show those tables.
Those are
One
the
of them is
outputs.
called,
I'm sorry to
one of
interrupt
these
because
tables,
you're putting
yeah,
like 40 years of experience into a very short time frame, right? So it's
I am.
I want to unpack a little bit about it. Are these forms that people are filling out, or is this like a an online questionnaire that they're then
It's it's
using as an
it's
output?
called an electronic patient reporting outcome, and in this particular is a set of trauma inventories, and they are online. You don't these things. The reason they're online is because they automatically
Create an
forward
algorithm,
into
right?
the software,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Okay.
you wouldn't want to take these things manually and try to put them in. So it's all electronic,
No.
one click of a button. So I'm going to tell
Mhm.
you something. It's called the Human Function of Life Loss Index, the HFLFFI, Human Function Loss Index. Chiropractors don't use it, but that's the key. That's the tool that translates all this into a loss index that the insurance companies can put a dollar amount on. Then there's
Mhm.
something called the unified or adjusted quality of daily living, and that can measure the actual effects. And I'm going to send you these tables, and you put them up as we, navigate through this presentation. The Human Life Function Loss Index, and
Okay.
then the
Mhm.
adjusted unified quality of daily living valuation table.
Well, we'll have
Then
to make
there's
sure
the loss
Kayla
of
gets that
service.
right. So,
Yeah. So
Mhm.
when you've got all these things done, you're able to evaluate loss of function, loss of daily living capacity, loss of services, even losses of earning abilities. But one of the inventories is the effects these injuries have with family members, friends, associates, socially, recreationally. It's amazing what we can do if we just want to step out of the realm of treating and go into the realm of problem solver. And the only thing
Mhm.
that I want for chiropractors, I want them to have the respect, the visibility, the momentum. I want them to have more referrals and, of course, more income. That's what I want for my
Mhm.
peers. And the only way you do that is by being the absolute best. You have to be the best.
right.
The thing about personal injury is, and this is surprising, you heard about these self-driving vehicles, right?
Mhm.
you can go
Mhm.
to you can go to the Center for Disease Control, and you can go to the government sites, and you can get research that tells us within the next 3 years they expect the number of auto accidents to double because of autonomous vehicles. It's gonna
Really?
they also predict it'll be until 2045 before those things actually work efficiently. So we're actually looking at doubling the amount of auto accidents in the next 3 years
That's
from
shocking.
autonomous cars.
Yeah, how does that
That's
Perfect
work? I mean,
crazy.
place.
Tesla going to be paying out some demand, like some lawsuits there for compensation? I would think.
Don't say anything,
It's
Dr. Joe. That sounds like it might fall like in the vaccine category. It's like just
I'm not against
trial and
them. I'm
error.
just saying. I'm just saying.
There's a whole lot of money in electric cars. We can't
Now,
stop that
yeah,
boat.
no,
Jaclyn,
no,
now,
but
I mean, but the
well, you
car
know what?
industry,
The
it's
tech,
so huge,
it's the
right?
technology, and I mean, what are we on now? We're on technology number 5. Is that what it is?
Mm.
And they say it's going to have to really evolve before those things are really foolproof. And so I'm only
Mhm.
here to support treating the injured person. And if we're doubling the amount of accidents, that's business for me and my peers, and that's where I come in.
Well, that's a
So
Absolutely.
positive way. That's a positive way to look at it, that we're just preparing the doctors with some good solutions to take advantage of some trends that may or may not be good for mankind, but at least we'll have a positive solution for it, right? To help them measure the outcomes and give them a good solution through chiropractic.
you got to get into the mindset of attorneys. We're having dinner with this attorney once, and it was a very expensive dinner, and there were a lot of people there. This attorney was footing this bill, and he said to me, "Hey, don't worry about this. Right now, someone's having an accident somewhere." And then he would go on to say, "I love it when it snows. There's more accidents." So if you really want to look at this through an attorney's eyes, they want a doctor that's going to solve their problem. The American Bar Association hired a Gallup poll to do a study, and they said 65% of every injury claim is grossly undervalued. And then they cited the reasons for medical record failing to document the effects injuries have. So it's a problem that has to be addressed, has to be looked at. And when somebody creates a problem, it gives you an opportunity to create a solution. And if you want to be rich, then give people what they need and want. But if you want to transcend that and become wealthy, then you find out what people's problems are and solve it. If chiropractors could adopt this and rise up into this technology, and you don't have to be tech savvy, you just have to use these trauma inventories, click a button, and this platform assembles everything, including these tables. These tables are then presented to the attorney. You do not use your narrative reports. They're pretty much useless. You use these audit reports, these forensic grade reports, and we have over 9,000 attorneys nationwide in our network, and we don't have reported cases where this has not worked because metrics fights metrics. It's no longer an opinion, it is admissible evidence. Um, I should mention tort reforms briefly because it's getting kind of serious. There's an American Tort Reform Association. They have adopted tort reforms in 17 states, which are very restrictive against personal injury. And the only thing is, they're not going to be able to restrict when you have this kind of documentation. You can't restrict an impairment. You can't restrict functional losses that are measured with metrics that are backed by the federal government. So I'm afraid this is the area chiropractors are going to have to rise if they want to be respected in personal injury. And now, I've got the good fortune of being in a position where I could create a platform like this, and I don't even know how that all came about, but I will say it's a lot of luck, God being at the right place at the right time, and always being introduced to the tools, the people, the opportunities, and the connections to open these doors. Um, I should start by saying this one brief story, which I kind of like. You know, I had everything going the way I wanted it to go. I'm practicing in New Jersey, and I've got the homes I want, the cars I want, the family I want. And then a governor writes a law called the verbal threshold, which eliminated lawsuits for whiplash. You would think it was unconstitutional. How can you not sue for a whiplash? But it worked, it stuck. And they fought it and they appealed it and they lost. 3 years later, it's going to the Supreme Court. I wrote my first book at that time on how to overcome that tort reform called verbal threshold. I had the solution. No one would read my book because I wasn't a real doctor. I was just a chiropractor. So I discovered something called positional marketing. There's a perceptual map, and there are 4 factors. And if you're in business, your consumers, and in this case, attorneys, will grade you and judge you conceptually based upon those 4 factors and where you stand. Well, I discovered how to put myself in the center of the positional map called repositional marketing. I sent out my piece to the American Trial Law Association, National Trial Law Association, New Jersey Trial Law Association, Young Lawyers Division, and the next day they brought me in. I testified in mock trials against 2,000 of the nation's finest providers, all neuros and MDs, and they chose me. And I became the medical expert at that Supreme Court, and I overturned that verbal threshold ruling. And that gave me the beginning in this. From there, I was introduced to behind the scenes insurance companies, Secretary of Health and Human Services. I found out Congress put an order together to the Secretary of Health and Human Services to come up with a way all evaluators and adjudicators could arrive at the same conclusions. Comprehensive injury index led to the abbreviated injury scale, led to today's new injury severity score, and then the federal guideline, all of which are built into this platform. So I've got a bulletproof system, and it's exciting because I want to elevate chiropractors. I know that we treat the best, but now we can document the best and solve the lawyer's problem. And these trauma inventories and these impairment ratings and these reports are all billable and codable. So we're adding revenue streams on top of solving problems.
Mhm.
Dr. Liberti,
See?
that sounds amazing. So tell me something now with all of we kind of jumped over your history over all of this to get you to where you are now. But how many doctors do you have who are successfully utilizing this or coming on board? Are you finding doctors who are already in PI practices, or are a lot of new doctors or younger doctors gravitating to it?
That's a really good question because um, I've got some. I have everyone in this program, ranging from solo practitioner who's his own receptionist to the guys that are collecting 3.5 million a year, with marketing directors to integrated practices to associates, and probably over 1,000 using the basic software. And then I've got I have I'm the founder of the Academy of Injury Claim Auditors. That's a pretty prestigious group. There's a little over 100 members in that. But on the general software platform, it's a box office hit. I don't have any contracts or agreements. Anyone can cancel us at any time. But why would you? If you make so much more money billing these services than you pay for a software, and then you get all this accolades from the attorneys. Yeah, there's plenty of people using it, been using it. It continues to refine and improve. We're vetted by a few companies, insurance companies, and it's just been a really great run. um, I have one of the large EMR companies that's in a license agreement with me at this time. So I expect this thing will become pretty much mainstream. I also happen to have a Shark Tank partner from the real TV show Shark Tank.
That sounds
So
cool.
the accolades are there. This thing is pretty much being perceived as a major solution, and it's all because of AI. And
Frank, now how difficult is it to get the Examiner 360 into these EHR? Number one, for a chiropractor that's doing PI, and then also number two is, do you only do it within chiropractic for Examiner 360, or are there people outside of the profession that are using this?
we are using this for lawyers in a different platform that produces the demand package for the attorney.
Hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's where my Shark Tank partner comes in to
Mm-hmm.
make available a demand formulator, an injury claim audit platform for attorneys, and that's where my Shark Tank partner is. So I've got that whole realm, and then I personally have an interest and a love for chiropractic, so I wanted to build a platform for chiropractors, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
Examiner 360 is. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the large EMRs is in negotiations with me right now to license it so that they can really, bring it out to the profession, make it more known, make it more popular,
Sure.
and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
have that level. But ironically, we don't have any defaults, because when you make something better and when you generate revenue, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's something that is going to stay and continue. So we've been very, very fortunate. I don't. I had there was one state where a doctor was brought up with five charges, and even criminal, from one of the insurance companies. And the state board called him up and said, it was going to be a big problem. He said, "Oh, well, I want to go to the hearing." They said, "Well, we don't let you come to the hearing." He went to the hearing, and within 30 minutes, they left the hearing. This is a true story. And that state said, the software that you use saved you. There's nothing the insurance companies can do to cite against you, because everything was documented according to the guideline. And then that state board said, we think every chiropractor should be on this system. So
Wow.
we're Daubert. We there's something called the Daubert challenges, the Fry challenges, the Stowers documents, and then there's chiropractors don't even know this, but they have to follow federal rules of evidence 701, 702, 703. We've built all those admissibility evidentiary rules into this model, so it's here to stay, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the most advanced. Now, in terms of, we didn't want to interfere with people's EMRs, and you don't have to. So you use your EMRs to do your daily treatment, to do your billing, to perform your soap notes. But Examiner 360 begins with the trauma inventories. So
Uh-huh.
you'll just email, because remember, it's an electronic patient reporting outcome. You
Right.
email it to the patient. When that information comes back in, you just click the button, And Examiner 360 goes through everything from the trauma inventories, adding
Mhm.
diagnoses, creating the impairments, doing the functional losses, plugging in the human life function loss index, doing the quality adjusted daily of life value formulas, publishing the loss of services. It does all of that. And that's the report that
Mhm.
goes to the attorney. You no longer need your SOAP notes, you no longer need your narrative, but you continue to use them in your day to day practice. Examiner 360 then really only becomes usable on the first and last visit. On the first visit, you'll bill the trauma inventories. On the last visit, you'll bill for the impairment and the report, generating a wonderful revenue stream, but enhancing your documentation records to increase your overall respect. This is
Sounds
Mhm.
like a
astronomically.
sounds
Yeah.
like a robust outcomes assessment, really, just really
And we built
tailored
it so
to
we
the
didn't
court.
and we nobody likes to change your EMR, and we didn't want to compete with that. We wanted to build. So when this EMR company that's going to license us, and I don't know if I should mention her name or not. I mean, we're pretty much into the license agreement factor, but that'll be another press release. When this
Right.
Mhm.
company when this company integrates this, it's going to be so simple. It's not replacing their EMR. It's only for use in personal injury cases, and it'll be used on the first visit to capture the trauma inventories. And then on the last visit, when you click the button, it's going to assemble the impairment and all the functional losses. And then it's going to also has the ability to put what they call present dollar value or dollar of the day value on the effects these injuries have, which is really where we need to be if we want to represent the effects of injuries. Now we didn't.
How long does it take to someone get up to speed to be able to use that in an efficient manner? I mean, is it something you have to do seminars on, or is there online training? How do you get them up to speed if, for example, they've never done PI?
To make training platforms. So we
Mhm.
this yeah the whole thing's an online training platform. I mean that's about as hard as difficult as it is. You don't even need to get with a live person. This is just an online training built by AI, so you'd never know. But we also every week we have a webinar every week for all the members nationwide, and that thing is packed full of people. We haven't even repeated a topic because there's so much that we can teach and go over. But to use the software itself, you're looking about a 30-minute AI training program, and then you're using it. it's it's
Okay.
it's really incredible.
And then is
Hmm.
for the cost to the doctor. So I'm just thinking of doctors who listen to this. I would be like, I want to have this in my practice immediately. And I want to have the facility to email to any patient immediately upon having a car accident so that they're filling out the forms. I mean, that's kind of the goal, right? Like it's just built into your protocols and your practice so that it's automated, correct?
Oh yeah, you have to automate these things. You got to make them real easy. And, I mean, I'm not even tech savvy, even though I built these softwares. I still have a hard time with TikTok. But you have to make this easy. So we made
Right.
this very simple.
How
And
much,
a lot of
Frank, is it for the doctors then? If they're signing up on it, is it a per user? Is it a per month? Is it a membership? How does that work on the economics for the doctors to know? Obviously, the time factor, not a factor because it's very easy to implement. So, the cost versus the benefit on that on how to get set up and started on this program. How does that work?
well, check this out. You have to make this affordable. You
Yep.
have to make it affordable. And
Yep.
for me, I have to base this on volume at the rate that we charge. It requires
Yep.
volume to pay back the cost to produce it. But
Mhm.
on the first use, this thing will pay for itself. On the first use, it'll pay for itself 3 or 4 times over. The
Right.
return on investment has been calculated over 2,000%. It's only hundreds per month,
Okay.
and there's no contract, so you can cancel this
Yeah.
whenever you want. There's no contract. You month to month if you're not happy, just but
Yeah.
no one so far we don't have any defaults because of what it's able to do for the case, for the
Right.
claim, for the reputation, and for the revenue.
For sure. Sounds amazing. Well, Dr. Joe, I don't know, and we're kind of getting close on time already. I know, Dr. Liberti, you're a wealth of information. You're a living legend around here. We always say that we're bringing together the best of the best, and the doctors who are literally walking the talk. And you mentioned at the beginning about how we've got generations of, decades together, not just us, the Bush second generation, but you go back to my father's generation, who is the founder
I do, I
of the
do.
magazine. And so, we know that you're always on the front end of all of the rising, technologies and opportunities in chiropractic and for chiropractic. So we really appreciate
Mostly,
all that you do.
mostly in personal injury though. That's been my
Mm-hmm.
I was so lucky. I mean, I didn't even know what personal injury was until I met a lawyer, and he kind of like taught me the ropes. And from there, I realized, I said, look, if you really want to rise above the top of this thing, you don't just give people what they need and want or what they ask for. You find out the problem and you solve it. No matter
Mm-hmm.
where you go in personal injury, low balls is the case, undervaluation is the case.
You
65%.
there,
Do you know
Jaclyn?
that
I think you
I
froze.
I
they estimated we're
am.
losing they
There we go.
estimated we're leaving 42 billion on the table
Wow.
in from undervaluation. So solve that problem and everything changes in your practice and in your business.
Well, I was just talking to someone the other day about this, Frank, and about personal injury and how, there hasn't been a lot of evolution since all those years ago. You had that in the 80s where there was a lot of documentation on injuries and rehab and whatnot. But this side, the reporting side, it's been absolutely evolutionary in the last 10 years. I mean, I'm shocked to hear some of these things, these forms. I don't pay a lot of attention to personal injury as a clinician with my patients because I live in a country that doesn't reimburse for it. But I'm always
Um,
trying to communicate the injuries that these patients sustain to them because that's an investment that they're going to have to take on. So, and the fact that you've got this all into an easy to use software, Examiner 360, I think represents a real opportunity to anyone that wants to enhance the quality of the lives of their patients. So thank you for all you're
well,
doing. Any
well,
any final
uh,
words here for our listeners?
yeah, I mean, you just made me think of something in closing. What you want to do to enhance your patient's experience is literally get them fair and equitable compensation for their injuries. I mean, when I first wrote this, when a friend of mine was in an accident, had 6 herniated discs, and the
Mm-hmm.
insurance company offered them $6,000. As
Mm-hmm.
soon as we resubmitted this exam, they got full policy coverage limits. I just think it's an atrocity, but if you want to solve the problem, you cannot do what you've been doing. As you see, the results in 65% of the time is going to be lowball undervaluation. So now you bring this forensic level of analysis into play, and now it's not an opinion anymore; it's a metric, and that's what.
Mm-hmm.
And these are federal metrics. We're talking about lawyers call it present value, the government calls it dollar of the day value, and the federal government created these expectancy data and values and these charts and these tables. They're all federal. So
Mm-hmm.
bringing this into your practice elevates you, and your patients are going to look at you and they're going to say, wow, nobody ever went through this much work to this depth to translate what's actually happened to me in real life into a dollar value. That's what it's
Mm-hmm.
about, and we're excited. And so
Well,
I
on
hope this
that
message
note,
gets out. People can go to the site. Can I give you the website?
Sure, definitely.
sure.
Please do. Give us an action
It's
step. We're excited. Where do we
it's
go?
yeah, it's examiner360.info. And
Mhm.
that's not we're not selling on that site. I have one video. If
Okay.
that video is well appreciated, you go to the next video. If that video is well appreciated, you can take the monthly streaming, which is
Okay.
90 minutes, which gives you everything. So you can look at a 4 minute video, a 9 minute video, or come onto the 90-minute streaming before you make your decisions. All the options are there, all the data is there to help you. The last thing I want to do is have somebody do something they don't fully understand or recognize or appreciate. So at
Mhm.
examiner360.info, it's an educational site. It's not the sales site. That's where I want them to go to get
Mhm.
more information.
On that note, on behalf of the TAC Tick Talk, I'm Dr. Joe Busch with Jaclyn Touzard. Dr. Liberti has a shark in your corner if you're getting into the personal injury market. So check it out, examiner360.info, and there's learn more there. All right. See you in the pages of TAC in the future, Dr. Liberti. Thanks for all you do for the profession. And listeners, give us a like, rate us high on our Spotify and podcast on Apple. Have a great evening.